So thank you all for joining us. And I've got the business club thing behind. That's a separate part of what we do. So we're Head Business Consulting. So we help smaller businesses to with adaptive business strategies and managing change. So as you'd expect, we're quite sought after right now, and we're helping and offering our services to help people through these times because they are quite unusual. So this topic is about managing change. It's the first part of a 4-part webinar series. And this one's kind of getting around the mindset and introduction. And you'll see later on, I'll introduce the series and we'll have some other guest speakers on some of those as well to help out. So today I'm going to take you through a presentation that we've got, which takes us on the journey of managing change. So this is around for us. It's a journey which all of us will be going through right now as we're dealing with change, and it's helping us to think about what the impact is as a human being on going through that process, how we can help ourselves, help others, and then ultimately think about our business and doing it differently. And then that will lead naturally to the next stages of the process, which we'll then move on to on Friday is the next webinar. So if we have a look through this. So if we think about the impact of coronavirus so far and what is the risk to our businesses in general, well, these are some of the big players. So we can see already, we know there's been a number of high profile casualties. Debenhams were actually one of my clients a number of years ago. They were the blue ribbon client of General Electric, who were the biggest company in the world whilst I worked for them. And now they've fallen foul of coronavirus. We've seen it with travel, we've seen it with restaurants, we've seen it with retailers, and it's impacting a lot of other sectors as well. Hospitality, as we see there on the headline, is expected to be particularly hardly hit, as are a number of other sectors. For us as small business owners, well, what's it mean for us? Well, last week the BBC had a news article that they think the surge for the impact of businesses is also coming, just like it is for the surge to impact on people. And they're saying up to a fifth of SMEs will run out of cash in the next 4 weeks. So that is 800,000 to 1 million businesses across the UK potentially going out of business in the next month. Now in Scotland, we've only got 356,000 businesses. So we can kind of see the scale of impact on that. All of you are very kind to fill out our questionnaire when you registered. So the bits at the top are actually what you are telling us about your concerns. So 89% of you are concerned or very concerned about the impact on your business. And actually only 3% have not been impacted so far, and 2/3 have been impacted significantly. So this is having a huge impact to us. I was on a separate session earlier today, and they asked some feedback questions as well, and the concerns were very much around cash flow, understandably, survival, recovery down the end, and then even things like people motivation and how we deal with that. So these are all the topics that we'll help you look at on this session today. So if survival's the key, then rather than reinvent the wheel, let's think about what the experts tell us. So if I think about survival, for me, the expert's Charles Darwin, right? So we all know who he is. We've all heard of survival of the fittest. And actually, what does he mean by survival of the fittest? So is it the fastest? Is it the strongest? When in reality, when Charles Darwin was talking about these, it was actually neither of those. So for him, the survival of the fittest was actually about the most adaptive. So it's those who can adapt to their situation. These are the species who survive and actually make it through. So he talks here, not the strongest nor the most intelligent. He goes on to actually talk about it's those who are able to live within their means and work cooperatively together against the common threats. And that's really important for us in small businesses because we need to think as well around operating within our means is kind of the cash flow question. So if income's down, can we operate within a cost which keeps us surviving? But also, how do we work together to survive this? So in small businesses, actually the benefit we've got is we are super agile and we can be very adaptive very fast, much more so than big businesses. But therefore we can work jointly together against these common threats and help each other to get through this and also survive out the other side. So this is the main part of the topic that I want to cover on today. So This is the psychology of change. Now, this is invented by a couple of psychologists based on dealing with grief. But as human beings, whenever change happens, this is the process we go through for that change. So it starts off, there's a shock, the change happens, and then we go on this journey, this curve. Up the line, this is about our emotions. So the higher the line, we've got more energy, we're more productive at work and business, we feel positive. At the bottom of the line on the vertical is where we're feeling low, we're no energy, and apathy setting in. And across the way, that's time. So it's as we move through. And there are different stages that we go through. And as a human being, we have to go through each of these stages. So the first stage we go through is denial. Now, the interesting thing, you see the curve's actually gone up slightly from shock. And this is because actually people bury their head in the sand. They can end up focusing on the immediate of what they're doing in day to day, and actually they increase their productivity in the short term on that. So I'm just checking other attendees trying to come in. Second stage is then anger. So the denial stage doesn't last for very long. And it comes to anger, and this is where you're trying to blame someone else. So I hate what's happened to me. It's not my fault. It was them over there. Trump's a great example of this at the moment in coronavirus. As far as he's concerned, it's not their fault. It's the Chinese. So the Chinese did this to them. They're doing their best to protect the country, and it's putting that blame onto someone else to say that's how it works. From anger, we then go into actually self-reflection. And we turn to blaming ourselves. So we look at what we could have done differently, should have done differently, how we might have protected our company. I should have kept more money aside to be able to last for longer. I should have done this, I should have done that. And these can actually go around in a vicious circle for a period of time, moving from anger to blame to anger to blame. And then after that, the next stage that you move through is into depression. So we just feel low, and it's confusion, it's uncertainty. We don't know what to do. We're low on energy. We don't really see the point in doing anything, and just languishing at the bottom. But then, as we move through the next stage, we get to an acceptance that actually what's happened has happened. I can't do anything about it, and now I can look forward and think, well, what can I do differently in this world? And from acceptance, we then start moving to problem solving. The energy is now moving back up the line, and ultimately into that brave new world where we can see the positive future and set that aside. And this is, as I say, the nature of whatever the change happened. It was based initially on grief, so bereavement. It's the same if there's a break in a relationship, but it's the same if something good happens or bad happens to you. We go through this process. It could be as simple as your cat's gone missing to anything quite extreme. Obviously, in this world right now, we're all going through this. We're at different phases. The interesting thing, you can't jump from phase 1 to phase 5. You have to go through the process. It's a human piece. You might shoot through some of them really quickly, and others you might get stuck in for a period of time. But at least if we are aware of what the stages are, we kind of know what to expect, and we can maybe help ourselves move through it a little bit more quickly than we might otherwise do. We also need to think about other people. So we're on this curve, but actually so is everyone else. So our colleagues, our employees will be on this curve, our friends and family on this curve, our customers and our clients and our suppliers are on this curve. So again, bringing the awareness for that. Key stage is this one. So if we think around acceptance, that's at the point. So if we can just maybe go on to mute if someone's got noise in the background. So at acceptance, up to that point, we're kind of looking backwards all the time. So this is wishing that the world was a better place, remembering the good old days. Why can't it be like that again? At the point of acceptance, we actually change and we start looking forwards. And this is now saying, so this is the future world. I've accepted that's happened. I can't change it. So now what can I do to make the whole world better as I go? And this is when we then start to try and create that new positivity. If we then, first question is, where are we on the curve? So each of us can take time to think around this, but also remembering actually we can move backwards along the curve as well. So you might feel one day you're at acceptance, but then later on, next day you wake up and you just feel a bit low again and you've drifted back. Other people can impact that as well, and even other things. So from a business point of view, I might be on acceptance, I might be in problem solving, taking the way forward, but then actually one of my family catches the virus and I'm now really concerned about the physical state of my grandfather or my parents and the risks to them. And that could take me back down on the curve again. Once we've thought about ourselves, then it starts time to think about other people. And how do we help others, our team members, people who engage with through this? So in denial, actually, it's about communication. At that first stage when shock, we need to communicate with them to help explain what's going on and to help get them through that denial phase. Once they move into the anger and blame, then it becomes a different stage where actually it's now listening to them. And that listening is really important in a calm manner. It's not trying to engage with them and argue back with them, because it's not going to positive anything. They need time to just vent and get it out their system. And it's understanding that some of these things just take time. But we listen in a calm way, and I've suggested also one-to-one. If you have a group of people in this phase together, if you put them all together, they'll get angry together and they'll exacerbate it. So actually having it in a one-to-one manner is helpful to them to let them move through that process. And then when they get to depression, it's around providing that really strong emotional support. So still listening, but actually now trying to help them move forward. Then also at this point, we always think about at each stage someone's at, we know what stage is coming next. So how can we kind of help them move through towards the next stage? So in that emotional stage, we can start to sell a little bit of the future state and so on. When we get to acceptance, that's the vision. That's really a strong bit. Let's now sell what the opportunities present in this new world and try and bring them with us. And then as we're moving up in the energy and problem solving positive new world, this is very much bringing the team back together. Let's harness that energy and let them work jointly together and having brainstorming sessions. One of our clients, they manage all the third sector in Falkirk, and their role in this piece has been to help coordinate all of the volunteer efforts around Falkirk. There's been lots of volunteers trying to help each other out, and that's been hugely energizing for them as a team, and they've seen the value they're adding. And what she spoke to me about is, how can I now harness this energy and this positivity I've got in my team and make that the new normal for my team? So we're sitting together with her and her team, and we're going to shape it. So we're going to say, so what is it the bits you really enjoyed and got the positivity out for yourselves? And we'll create a new purpose for her and her organization, a new vision and values, if you like, which will take them forward based on the energy that they've created at this. So they're already up in this phase of 6, 7. It's now shaping that to make their future world. Just a reminder at this point that when we think about coronavirus, we often think about the physical side and the challenges that presents, and people have died, more people will die, and it's hugely damaging. But actually, let's not forget the mental side. So there's a lot of anxiety around at the moment. There's anxiety around do they still have a job, financial worries. There's anxiety around will they catch it or their friends and family catch it. There's just being trapped in causes this as well. So we need to remember the mental health side as well, and help people through that side. There's a lot of help out there for the space, but we mustn't forget it. So then if we think around from a business perspective, having thought about the change and where we are, what's our approach from a business perspective to dealing with the coronavirus? Well, I suggest that it can be in one of 3 different camps. So stage 1 part 1 could be looking at it and still trying to maintain business as usual as best we can in face of adversity. So still trying to maintain our products, our services, supporting our customers, trying to have some income coming in and carrying on in whatever way we can. Second stage is kind of hibernation. So this is hunkering down. I'm going to cut my costs. I'm going to accept the fact that my doors are basically shut for a period of time. I'm going to leverage the government money that's available, and I'm going to try to ride it out and see if I can survive that way. And then the third one is something else where we're taking a different approach. So for each of us, again, just have a little pause and think about where we might be on this. I've run the session a couple of times the last weeks. A couple of weeks ago, it was sort of 1/3 were in business as usual and 2/3 were trying to hunker down. Actually, there's been a bit of a mindset change now, and we've still got some people trying to do business as usual, or maybe even viewing they've gone back to that, and people thinking more about something else. The hunkering down bit's a little bit less this week than it was last week. So people are realizing they need to do something different, and just hibernating on its own is not necessarily the best route. And that's important because the world has changed. The problem with the hibernation point of view is there's an assumption there that if I'm hibernating and shut up shop for 3 months, in 3 months' time I open the doors again, the world's back to the way it was, and we just crack on and rebuild where we were. But I'd argue on the change curve, people thinking that are in denial, because they're thinking that actually in 3 months' time, actually none of this happened and we just crack on, it's been a hiatus. The world will never be the same again as it was before coronavirus. And if that sounds a bit extreme, then just think around where we are today. So, we've got a dozen of us sat on a remote webinar. So would we have done this a month ago? Earlier today, I was on one with 60 people. So we found a new way of working through necessity. We have to. But therefore, this enables us to do different things. This technology has been around for a while and we haven't been using it. We're being forced to now, but actually it's quite good. I wouldn't necessarily use it for everything if I could meet people face to face, but it saves a lot of travel, journeys, time, and there's a lot of efficiencies of doing things like this, and people will remember that. I was on a workshop a week and a half ago, and there was a lady from one of the big banks there, and she was saying they have already decided at executive level they're never going back to having their 15 offices in dotted different cities around the UK because they don't need to. They've got 95% of their workforce working really productively remotely, so why have 15 offices? Now, they'll still have some, but they won't have as many. So there'll be new ways of working. There'll be more flexibility of people working from home and doing things more remotely. On the flip side, that means the world's got a lot smaller. So behind me, you see the business club banners. That's an organization we launched for training or learning for business leaders in the Forth Valley area. And it was sold on being genuine face-to-face training and for local business leaders to get together in the Forth Valley, which is great. But right now we can't meet. So we're now doing that remotely. And that means when we get to learn how to do that successfully, we don't just have to do it now for the Forth Valley. It can be anywhere. People can come from Edinburgh, Glasgow. They could come from Inverness. They could come from Leicester, they could come from London, they could even come from Germany. So the world's got smaller because if we're successful about being able to conduct business remotely, then actually we can conduct business with the whole world. So we don't have to be constrained by our local piece. So for those of us in Scotland, that's a really strong proposition because our market is normally smaller and we think that way, but it allows us to think globally as well. So what gets in the way of us moving forward? Well, there's a few things. If we're stuck on the change curve, understanding where we might be and the stages is the first part. If you're actually generally stuck, there's a really good book called Who Moved My Cheese. It's only quite a short book. It takes about an hour and a half to read, but it's really good at helping us understand our personal blockers to dealing with change. We have a lack of information. We have concerns over cash flow, general risk and worry, and ultimately all this boils down to uncertainty. So if these things are blocking us, then let's try and think about how we can remove them. Talked about on the change curve how we deal with that. Lack of information, the challenges. So what information can we get? If I can't get information for everything, then let's get where we can. Concerns over cash flow is a modeling piece. We can at least model out where we are. We can, if we have a problem, we can then look at the solutions to that, which the government and various other bodies are trying to help us with. Uncertainty is the tricky one. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail. So reducing uncertainty is hard because the whole point is we don't know much about it. So the first challenge for dealing with uncertainty is actually let's try to make certain elements more certain. So rather than trying to look at the whole picture, let's focus on the areas where I do know things. So what is it in the space I do know as a business owner? Well, I told it going back to basics here. What I know is I know what we're good at. So I can think about our own organization and our assets. So what do we like to do? What do we do well? What do we maybe do better than others? And what are the problems that people are facing today and in the future? And how can we use our skills to help them with that? When we first started business, this is what we did, all of us, right? So we looked at the skills assets we had, we looked at the problems people face, and we thought, I can solve that, I can do that really well, and this is what we'll do when we set up a business. And the fact we're in business has proven we were right and we can do it well. It's almost going back to that first start point again and looking back at, okay, the world's a little bit different. So let's refocus our business and take the opportunity to do that. And for some people, there's not going to be much changes. For some others, it might be a new product or a new service or a slight differentiation. For other people, it could be something radically different and actually a complete pivot and change in direction. But this is how we focus the area. Do some scenario planning. So we don't know exactly what the future will hold. Things are changing by the day and we're getting new information. But one of the things we've learned from Brexit is the worst thing businesses can do is do nothing. So just sitting and waiting is not the right answer. What we need to do is actually pick a direction and start moving forward in the right way. And if we pick a direction, even if we're not exactly right on the outcome, because some things we don't know and we find out later, we're going broadly in the right direction, and then new information comes in, we can tack, but at least we're moving forward. So it's really important. The scenario planning allows us to think what ifs. So if this happens, we could do that. If that happens, and build different models, and then we're already pre-prepared depending whatever may happen. And I really challenge you to think differently. So if the world has moved on, then let's, rather than thinking about the additional constraints that has imposed upon me, think about the constraints that have disappeared. I talked earlier about the fact that the world is now smaller. So that's a big constraint that's gone, is geography. But also, let's not get held up by what we did before. Let's try and open our minds to different things. Ultimately, it is all about mindset. So for us, it's down to us and what we believe. So we can either be on that left-hand side of the change curve, worrying about what life used to be and thinking it was great, or we can be on the right-hand side and think positively around, actually, this is where we want to be, and we can influence this, and we're the ones in control of our own destiny and making those decisions. So this is a little example, I thought. It's a slight alternative view on the corona crisis. So Google's searches have spiked on how do I cut my own hair? So obviously for me, that's less of an issue. I've been cutting my own hair for 20 years. But actually, this is a genuine problem. We shared this at one of our business clubs, and one of the ladies there said she thought that hairdressers should actually be key workers because it's a really important thing. Actually, in Spain, they were. So when the corona crisis first hit, hairdressers were kept as key workers for a period of time, and then they realized it wasn't tenable. But it's a genuine thing here. People are genuinely worrying about how I cut my own hair because we're locked in for the period. And actually, haircuts are really important to most people, not me. But if I saw this, actually, my first reaction is, well, I'll tell you, if I were a hairdresser, I know what I would be doing right now. So if I had the skills here, I would be looking at the problems my customers face is they now can't get to a hairdresser. They're anxious about their hair. They want to do something, and they don't have the skills themselves. So if I've got the skills, then I could run a set of webinars to teach them. And I could be doing that, and actually I'm still providing for the customers. That could even, you can charge for it as well, and people learn how to cut their own hair. Now, I talked about don't be constrained about what you do. Why are hairdressers not doing this so much? One of the concerns is likely to be they're anxious about if they teach people how to cut their own hair, they don't need them in the future and they've lost their business. But in reality, that's not really going to be the case. We're allowing ourselves to be constrained by what we did before. The opportunity here is, what is the problem now? How can we help them with that? Get them through it, and that creates more opportunity for ourselves going forward, because it builds our profile, and when they're allowed back out, actually we're better known and we'll have more people come back to us. So what about your business? Well, we got to think about every business is different. Some things will be the same. One of our clients is a roofer. I have a roof before, I have a roof now, I have a roof in the future. We always have roofing needs. Designers, marketing agencies, they were amongst the first to lose all their contracts. It's the first things people kind of cut. But it's one of these things, again, where people will need marketing in the future. Once they've worked out what their future offering is as a business, then they'll come back to marketeers. But other things may change. If we think around conferences, so the Excel Centre used to put on tens, maybe hundreds of major conferences each year. Right now, they're a hospital. Even when constraints are started to be lifted, the likelihood is we're not going to have major gatherings of 500 of thousands of people together this year. So the conference world isn't going to be working this year. So people in that space will then have to think differently. And they need to think about what is the actual issues or needs that were being addressed by a conference anyway. And you have different groups of people, those who have stalls, those who are presenting, those who are coming around as buyers, those who are viewing. So what are the needs of the different groups, and how else might you be able to fulfill that in a world where we can't go face to face? And something will happen in a remote manner which delivers against those needs. And then in the future world, even when we can go to things face to face again, actually this could be a really effective and efficient way forward, because you don't have to travel, you don't have to buy the expensive stalls collateral, you don't have to stay in hotels, and we may find that this actually starts to replace some of the face-to-face conferencing in this future world. So this is where we need to think differently around what the offerings and how we can help people achieve these different aspects. So I promised we'd come back to our three-stage process of managing change. So today was about the mindset and creating that vision, but actually our three-stage process is quite simple. So stage one is crisis management. and you should all you'll all been doing this already. Hopefully you're not in the 20% of those at risk in the next 4 weeks, but clearly for a lot of people, they're still in crisis management right now. Once we got through that and we're confident that we're not going to go under, and that's purely what crisis management is about, is that survival piece. The next stage is stabilization. So in this world of lockdown where we can't meet face to face, we're taught that sales, you don't buy things, you buy from people. It's all about rapport and relationships. Well, in a world we can't do that face to face, so we have to find new ways. So stabilization is how can we get our business being back in business, making sales, making purchases, and having money move around. And then the third stage is in that real vision piece of, in this future world, whatever it may look like, what is our way forward? How can we adapt and transform our business to really take advantage of the opportunities? And because businesses will be going out of business, there will be opportunities for those of us around. And also those who adapt the fastest will naturally create greater opportunities themselves. So I put it down, a couple of thoughts just at the end. Shared Charles Darwin before. This is one of Scotland's favourite sons. This is Adam Smith from Kirkcaldy, and he was the founder of the market economy principles. The world needs us right now. So everyone's looking on the human side of those at risk and how many may die. But actually, the bigger risk to the world overall and to our country where we live is about the economy. So if businesses all cease, then actually we've got a bigger problem, because that will create huge deprivation. There'll be mass unemployment, there'll be lack of money. There could be more people actually die from starvation or things like that than actually from the virus itself. So the world needs businesses to be in business, because we actually keep the economy moving, we employ people, we keep money moving around. So we need to have our mindset switched on to, we need to be both buying and selling. And I was asked an interesting question in the previous session around, there's a lot of guilt amongst business owners right now about charging for services. And I've seen some of this on LinkedIn as well, where some people are getting a bit criticized for putting things up and charging. Now, people shouldn't be trying to profiteer out of it, selling bottles of hand sanitizer or masks for stupid amounts of money. And people have stopped, well, lots of other people have started creating these and giving away for free right now. But actually, if you do something really well and you are helping people solve their problems, then people are prepared to pay for that. People always have been and always will be, and it's okay, as long as we're not overcharging. In fact, we might undercharge right now because people are in a world where they have less resource, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't charge at all. So it's just creating the right space and accepting that actually it's really, really important we do move around. But it isn't that we just make loads of money ourselves and then keep it to ourselves and say, I'm all right. If we start selling things and making money, we almost have a duty of care to other businesses to start buying from them as well and keep that money floating. And that's what Adam Smith taught us. So my final kind of little piece is, let's be positive. So disruption is good. We wouldn't have chosen what's happened to happen, but it has. So given it has, let's try and make positive things come out of it. Disruption challenges the status quo. Disruption creates opportunities. Disruption is a bedrock of innovation coming out. And absolutely, for us as small business owners, disruption is our time, because we are far more flexible, adaptable, and swift to change than big businesses. So this is the opportunity for us to really collaborate together and make good things happen out of this. So that's my real challenge for each of us as small business owners is let's take the positive opportunities out of this. And my final takeaway, there's no accident that the rainbow has been chosen as the symbol for dealing with coronavirus. Storms happen. We can't control them, they're an act of nature. But after every storm, the sun will always shine again. The world might be slightly different, but actually the rainbow comes when the sun lands back on the rain, and let's be positive out of that and make the positive future. And this is down to us and our mindset to make that happen. So that was my whistle stop tour. This is, as I say, it's the first of a 4-part series. Thank you for signing up. I hope that's been useful. On the next one, which is on Friday at 10:30, we're going back now to our piece, and we're looking at that crisis management. And I've got some special guests from an HR company and an accountancy firm as well. So we will be helping you and looking at some of the pieces here of what is available from the government to help us survive this, and the process for going about getting that, and what to do in the interim, because some of these monies may come later. So next one's about crisis management, and then we'll be looking at stabilization, and then we'll be looking at how we take the way forward and adapting our business into that new world and taking advantage of the opportunities. So I'd like to thank you all for your time. It's been a pleasure having you, and I look forward to seeing you again on Friday.